Next item.
Thank you.
Board of Education business. Acknowledge of correspondence.
There have been a lot of emails coming through recently, many of them dealing with the teachers and the contract that we've been responding to. I don't know if anyone had got any individual correspondence. All right, next item.
Board member committee and organization reports.
It's been 5 weeks since we met before.
I just really want you guys to know how disrespected that your staff feel with you not reading the blue cards. We came here in hopes of having all of our voices be really heard by this board, and by not reading all of the blue cards, what you did was minimize people's voices, and whether or not that was the intention, that was the impact, and you just reinforced the feelings of disrespect and being dismissed and really not being taken seriously. And most of your staff that left feeling that way, and that's what's, what they're left with. So I really need you guys.
All right.
Especially for the ones who are sitting in the room and put their card in because they didn't feel comfortable speaking in front of all of these people.
The board has the ability to go back and read them on our own.
But past practices, you guys have always summarized each individual one or read each individual one. I have been one who has submitted a card and had my entire card read by trustee Mosick before.
All right, this is from legal representation at the Michigan Association of School Board. A citizen doesn't have the legal right under the Open Meetings Act to have their public comments read by the school board. Thus, if a citizen submits a public comment card with written comments and doesn't wish to verbally address the school board, the board doesn't have the legal obligation to publicly read the comments. The only exception would be is if the student has the citizen has a disability that prevents them from verbally addressing the board and reading the comments. And one thing that we've done in the past that we've been working on is just summarizing any blue card for people that didn't want to speak publicly. We do have the ability, and we will read all the comments. Next item.
Board member superintendent commentary.
The fact that you did it the first time when it's teachers.
Excuse me.
speaking, it really lets us know. This is the first time you've done this, and it's when the teachers are here.
Ms. Martin, it has nothing to do with that timing. It's something that we've been bringing up. We did it at the last board meeting as well.
But then the community.
This is for board business. Let us wrap things up. Next item.
Trustee Watts.
Board members.
Trustee Watts, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we do have a report for policy committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
we did.
sorry, see,
Oh.
yeah.
Before we move forward.
We approved the minutes, but what was in that
Well, that was
policy?
after we approved the minutes, so
It
we've
was
met
the-
since the last meeting.
Oh, yes.
Right,
thank you for
June
reminding me.
28th,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think I saw was the date.
Yes.
Okay.
So that one we looked over. I just had it in here. Thank you for that. So we went over, this was the one that was reviewing most of the Neola policies. So one of them was the 5,000 series policy. Those were all reviewed to make sure that it followed the Elliott Larson. There was one policy that did not have that language that was added to it. The other one was number 2, questions from last meeting about retaliation. So that was, I think that was going to be determined, and we're going to look back at that one. The next one was policies for the technology packages. We had one about how students use Chromebooks. Both Bob and Chris we're going to go look over that one. The current status is we do not have one. That one had to do with students and one had to do with staff. And the recommendations was that they would make a guideline. There were 2 other policies, 8305 and 8315. One was about information security and the other one was information management. We do not have a policy regarding that. One would be adopted as a policy, the information security, and the one for information management was not going to be turned into a policy. And then 9700.01, we needed more info, and the recommendation would be that we should adopt the changes. The other policy that we reviewed was policy 5518, use of cellular phones for students, and the guideline 5518, the electronic device use by students and staff during testing. Those would have no changes. The other one was bylaw 0144.1, compensation. And that was regarding the healthcare benefits for board members, and there was just a question about it, but there was no changes on that one. The other one was 5113.02, school of choice option provided by the No Child Left Behind. There was, we would update that to reflect that No Child Left Behind is no longer valid, so that'll be a change. And then the last one was 5121, school of choice, and we were discussing revisiting the definitions of both school of choice and boundary line exemptions and tightening up the process. And we were asking Dave Mustin to review other school districts to see what they would do for borderline exemptions as well. And there was also an update about, I have on here tobacco. Do you guys remember what that was?
I want to clarify something, though, just real quick. You had mentioned that we had discussed the policy about board members' health care. Board members do not get health care.
No, yes.
But I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to make sure that that was clear. We do not get health
Yes,
care.
correct. There
So,
was something about tobacco. What was that
Mr.
one?
Mustin?
So Neola had provided us updates about all the tobacco policies. We were going to take a look at those. We already have many of those in place. And I think what we were going to just review and see if we needed a tobacco policy for each section, or if one covers staff, visitors, students, was comprehensive enough, and that's what we were going to take a look at.
Yes, and then the one more was that we were going to look into adding verbiage that contractors in their bid language so that they can make sure that their employees are either being provided with iChats through their employees or making sure that their databases, their names are run through the databases for, they're not in the sexual registry as well. So that was something else that we were going to look into.
Okay.
Trustee Barry?
Yeah, Mr. Mustin did such a great job at the last committee. We could just pass by this, right? I just want to make sure that what Trustee Watts referred to as school of choice and borderline exemption. This time of the year, we get a lot of grievances, a lot of complaints, and just people just not happy with us. And they actually make a lot of accusations. So we are, just so the public knows, we are going to revisit that policy and see what we need to do to tighten things up.
Yes, and thank you again
Thank you.
for bringing up the fact that we had policy. Totally forgot.
All right, next item.
Board member and superintendent commentary.
Trustee Moses.
Thank you. I would reiterate and thank all the citizens and especially the employees who addressed us tonight on contract negotiations. And I hope to see a contract proposal by the time we meet again. And I call on the negotiation team and Dr. Maleko, as well as DFT negotiation team, to put their best good faith effort in reaching a contract that is fair to all and that is sustainable for our budget. And always put our students first. I also want to talk about the investigation that we received, an attorney client privilege report on, which this was on the hiring of the Etzel Ford coach. And the attorney mentioned that we need a motion in a public meeting in order to waive the attorney-client privilege and make it public if it needs to be. So for the sake of transparency, I make a motion to waive that attorney-client privilege and make that report public.
Just for that one report, you're saying.
Correct.
Is there support?
I would support that.
All right, motion by Trustee Moses and support by Trustee Barry to waive the attorney-client privilege on the letter that we got from the attorney regarding the investigation into the coaching hire. Did that summarize that well?
Yes.
All right. I don't know if we'd be able to really do discussion because of attorney-client privilege before a vote. Any thoughts on that?
My thought is, it's been a while since I've read that report, and I would like to kind of look at it again before I voted on this, just because I don't remember exactly what's in it. If there's anything that is compromising to the district or employees, or if maybe part of it we could, I don't remember what's in it, so I'm just a little uncomfortable approving the whole thing to be out into the public without remembering, because it does mention employees' names, it mentions, and so I'm apprehensive about that.
Trustee Barry?
Yes, I mean, last meeting, there was a lot of community members that asked for this, and we decided to do this investigation, and it's their money that we use to pay for this investigation, and, you know, they're asking questions. I'm sure every one of us is getting calls or emails, and I'm sure the administration is getting emails about, hey, what's going on? We don't want people to think that we swept it under the rug. That's why.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's why I would be okay. I guess you make a very valid point that there's employee names in there. If it's just committee members, then, you know, it should be public knowledge, right?
I don't think it was, I don't recall what was
No, I'm
on
saying,
the
we
report.
would lean on legal for advice there.
Oh.
If it's an employee, you know, Dr. Maleko and his administration would get advice from the legal department. But there's a lot of people in the community waiting for this report, so.
Oh, I get
Yeah.
that. I just don't want to do anything that could injure someone or,
Dr. Maleko?
And we had a long conversation
against
with
the
the
law.
attorney on Friday with Ms. Ali Bazzi, and I've been in communication over the weekend with President Thorpe. If it was released, so there was two different options. One was to just, as the motion you make, and release the document. Now, you would still have to go through some of that, because some stuff may need to be redacted for legal reasons. So we would have to do that prior to any public release, almost like a FOIA in a way. The other option was releasing a statement summarizing from the district the report with some of the findings in there. But I'm comfortable either way. Those are the two options that were discussed. So it's really to the, you know, I mean, we could, if you needed more time, let's just say, we could have that statement released sooner and then review it and then decide if you want the.
Well, we've
At
got
this
a
point, there's a
motion.
motion on the table.
There's a motion on the table. So I don't really want to go too much further.
You
and
can't.
Let
You
us,
really-
let us
legally, you
vote.
can't go too far, yeah.
Right.
But my point that I was trying to make earlier, you know, I agree with what Trustee McDowell saying. My point is, you know, in the spirit of transparency, and we've been telling people that, hey, there is investigation, and you will get, you know, the results of that, so.
Any other discussion before we vote? Yes, Trustee Petchkoff.
Well, and in a line with what is being said, we can either amend the motion if we want to address how we release it, rather than just a blanket, we will release it, because that was going to be my question, and Superintendent Maleko did say he had a couple different options of how to release it. Do we want to amend the motion, or do we want to just put it out there, which would then either be foiable, we could discuss it amongst any individuals we wanted to, and I mean, I'm not certain, that do we want to just do it one way, if everybody's, let's just vote, or we can amend the motion. That's one of the two things we can do at this point with the motion on the table.
Trustee Barry?
So anytime you summarize a report, the perception, just like tonight, okay? Secretary Watts and President Thorpe didn't do anything wrong. They're leaning on what legal has told us. But the perception out there is we're trying to silence the employees. And same thing holds true here, that if we just kind of summarize, and people can say, see, I told you, that's exactly what they were gonna do. And the superintendent are gonna come back and say, they followed their own policy and everything's good, which it's not gonna make people
I
happy,
would
so.
like to
Trustee
amend
McDonald?
amend the motion than just to say, I have no problem.
I don't think you're
can't amend
able
it.
You
to
can't,
amend it.
Can't amend the motion.
yeah, the
Okay,
person who
then-
filed the
I mean,
motion.
he put the motion on the table,
Okay.
let's call the vote.
Well, my concern, I just want to make sure, I absolutely, transparency, get the report out there. I don't want just a synopsis of it, but I just want to make sure that we're not doing anything illegal or putting anybody in jeopardy or doing anything that we shouldn't be doing. I just.
Our lawyer very clearly told us that if you want to waive the attorney-client privileges, you have to put it to vote. We're
Right.
not doing anything wrong here. Now, that goes back to Dr. Maleko and the attorney, and I'm sure they'll clean up what we can put out there, what we can't.
That's my concern is the
I
cleanup.
understand exactly what you're
Okay.
feeling, I'm just trying
That's-
to.
So trustee Moses, would you agree to amend it, or are you comfortable with the language that was already stated?
We can amend it to redact any information that could
It would have,
violate any
yeah,
employees.
that would have, you don't have to amend your motion.
Right.
That's a given, that's a
So
given.
when this report, I imagine, would be released, it would redact any personal information for the
Yeah.
employees. But the entire report, I think, in its entirety needs to be released.
Okay, so we would then amend the,
Redacted
amendment.
information
You
that
don't need
talks
to
about.
amend
Right.
it to, take out information. That's just legal advice.
any other discussion on this item? Then,
The only thing I just wanted to mention is we wanted to give the complainant the opportunity to meet with our department to go over it, before any kind of release. That
Sure,
would be the only
that's fair
thing.
enough.
I think we,
Those are all the legal
Yeah,
issues
those
that I
are-
was
yeah,
concerned about.
Exactly, yeah.
then could I get a roll call?
Trustee Barry?
Yes.
Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes,
Trustee Moses?
Yes,
Trustee Petrichoff?
Yes.
Trustee Watts? Yes. President Thorpe?
Yes. Motion carries. We're still on board member and
Commentary, yeah.
superintendent commentary. Additional items. Trustee Watts?
So I had mentioned this, I think, previously, and I think you and I had maybe discussed this, but I think in regards to the blue cards, if we could add language for those people who don't want to speak, to know that those ideas would be summarized. So I think that going forward, if people showed up to the meeting thinking that their words would be verbatim, they know that it won't be. So if we could add language to the blue cards so that if they want to be able to have their voice heard, they can come to the podium, just so that this way they know if they're checking it off what the outcome would be, so.
And they can always still email the board, so we have a chance to read their full comments that way as well.
Yes, and I think somebody else had said something about having social anxiety. So then I think in that instance, you could have somebody else come and speak on your behalf, correct?
we had someone who read someone else's
Yes.
comments
So I
tonight,
think maybe add something to the blue card so that when somebody is filling it out, they know exactly what those outcomes could be.
That is allowed, you just can't give your time to somebody
Right.
else.
Yes, yes.
One last comment.
Can the
Trustee
same
Barry?
person read multiple blue cards for people?
I don't see why.
If you've got everybody's written comments,
Is that sharing time, though?
I don't know if that would be considered sharing time. We'd have to double
three-
check that
three
one.
minutes if
It would be,
you kept-
you'd still be allowed 3 minutes for each of the comments,
or for each person.
for each person's comments.
I think if we could add language on the blue card, I think it would help going forward. I think just knowing that.
Trustee Moses?
yeah, I believe if someone makes an effort to come to this meeting and wants to address us, and for some reason personal to them, they can't stand in front of us, but they already wrote us a note, I think it is worth hearing them. We need to do that. I don't think that would add a half hour to the meeting. We've heard Dearborn residents, excuse me, if Dearborn residents have addressed us before, during COVID, I remember reading pages and pages of commentary, and I think that is very important. I value every citizen's right to speak and right to write to us. But again, if they made an effort to come to this meeting and wrote a note, I think it is fair that it should be read. It might not be something that we have to do, but I think it is the right thing to do.
And it was different rules also during COVID. Trustee Barry?
Yeah, just I want to say, I heard a couple of times today that we feel disrespected. And tonight, I can assure you that, before this meeting, we met in a closed session, and you were very, very well represented. I mean, we had some great discussions with our negotiating team, and we want to get there sooner than later, just like you. So I don't want anybody walking away from here, and some people that walked away, I'm sure that eventually they'll listen to these comments. Don't feel like we don't care. We do care. Without teachers, you can't educate. End of story. Without teachers, you can't educate. And you were. I can assure you that you were very well represented in closed session.
Any additional commentary? Trustee McDonald?
I just wanted to say that as well. We absolutely value our teachers. We value every staff member in this building. We can't do this job without you. These students need full-time teachers. They need a dedicated teacher, every one of them in front of every student. That's our goal. But we have to work together to get there. So I just wanted to say that, and as several, Trustee Barry and Trustee Moses said, this is a negotiation. We have to work together. We do have the same goal, we really do. But we have to work together to make it happen. And we have to understand the limitations, and we have to understand where we want to be. So I just wanted to say that. And one more thing, this is a different topic. I want to thank everyone that came out to support the Dearborn Goodfellows this weekend. It was a wonderful event. It was very well attended. And the Goodfellows, it was their 100th anniversary, and they do a lot for our community and our students. And they have for 100 years. So I just wanted to give them a little shout out and thank everyone that came and helped them with their endeavors.
Trustee Watts?
I just wanted to make sure that we had somebody in our thoughts. I know that earlier today, there was an incident that happened at Ford Road and Telegraph that a 16-year-old was rushed to the hospital. And I don't know if any more details have been given out, but I think it goes back to the summer of, I know that our kids are out there and we have adults who are running past red lights, but it just pause for just a second, right? And just think of how we can keep our kids safe and our adults safe. And I just hope that whoever this child's parents are and family, that it ends well for everybody. So
I
it's
can
just,
comment on that. Since the road was closed for 2 hours, people just assumed the worst, but there was a report out there that
they were at the hospital.
the child was in the hospital and was.
It's just a reminder of
Yeah, no,
taking
thank you.
those,
Appreciate
that
that.
extra
Thank you.
time, so.
Next item.
Requests for information and/or future agenda items.
One thing I would put out to the full board that has been brought up previously by Trustee Watts, as we're getting close to a new school year, what if the trustees thought of some goals that we'd like to see administration work on for the school year 2023, 2024? We'll have our August meeting right before the school year starts. So give some thought into maybe, again, just one item that you'd like to see the district working on over the next school year. Trustee Barry?
So at the last meeting, I asked for the budget for communication department, salaries, additional positions, last 10 years. It was by no means, I was picking on my good friend David Mustin, and I actually gave him the heads up that I was gonna do that. But I just wanted to see what that report would look like. And Tom, I love you, but this is just too much information. Somehow, some way, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this, I'm gonna get to it in a second. Somehow, some way, how much the director gets paid. Has there been any additional positions added to that department? What are those salaries? The reason I'm getting this information, I had a good idea this was gonna happen. I didn't want you to go through every department and come back like this. And so 10 years ago, we were accused of being top-heavy, okay? And we did the reports and got the numbers. And if you compare apples to apples, our district compared to other districts, we were fine. So that argument's been coming up recently, the last couple of years. So I'm looking at the cabinet structure here. You got the executive cabinet, you got the regular cabinet, the extended cabinet, instructional cabinet, non-instructional cabinet. So I just want to know are we top-heavy? So the only way to find that out is to get that information. And if we are, we need to have a discussion this body needs to have discussion. If we are not, and we can, put it out there that, hey, look, this is where we're at compared to Utica, compared to Livonia, compared to Canton, just like we did 10 years ago. We're good? If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to call me tomorrow or sometime soon.
Trustee McDonald?
Just one more quick thing about comparisons. When you're comparing things, you're not always comparing like items. So I just wanted to throw that out. You look at a bottom line of something, but there's a whole lot of levels and a whole lot of things that go into that bottom line, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you look at one thing and say, this just isn't fair. Look at this and look at this. But you're not seeing this and all the other things that encompass the whole.
Yeah, but I hope I'm making it obvious. I'm looking at salaries.
Yeah,
compensation.
I'm not talking about just your point. I'm talking about
okay,
the whole
okay,
discussion that's gone on tonight when we're making comparables.
Sure.
Of anything.
Any
You
other
have to make
requests?
sure you're comparing the same thing to the same thing.
Any other requests for information or future agenda items? Trustee Peliskov?
Mine isn't a request for information per se, but I had a conversation with Dr. Maleko earlier about a question I had on an agenda item dealing with something coming out of the curriculum committee. And so I suggested, so I'm just going to put it out there for everybody, that it would be helpful if in board briefs, when the curriculum committee is exploring new courses or changing programs up, that we kind of have a history behind it so we understand what's gone into it. Sometimes we get some of that information when there's a shift in books or whatever, but tonight we had one on AP pre-calculus on there, and I wanted to understand what it was because it's a new AP course actually for the College Board is putting it out there too. So I just thought it would be helpful if we always have that kind of background following through. So I just wanted to let you know that I had asked about that.
Yeah, and I think that's an easy fix because we could just do a separate page and when there's updates, because
Right.
sometimes they don't take action. So when they do, we could just have that as a standing page, potentially, Joanne.
So I just didn't want you guys
And I
to be
did talk to
surprised
Dr.
if there's
Gruber.
one more piece of information to read on board briefs.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one.
And Trustee Moses?
I know from watching the first June meeting, Trustee McDonald asked about artificial intelligence and how it's impacting our district. I'd like to add a request to see how from next year, how's that being implemented to ensure academic integrity and making sure that for artificial intelligence, the use
Oh,
of
oh.
artificial intelligence in classrooms.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Trustee Mosley, that's something the policy committee was also going to look at to see what Neola was
Okay.
going to bring down as well, was going to recommend.
So are we going to have anything by the fall? So students are aware of
I'm looking at
the
Mr. Mustin.
usage?
Okay.
Just to keep a thought in that vein of artificial intelligence, we talk about how our students can use it in this and that. I also want to, just as a district, and I'm not asking for any particular information, just to keep a thought on artificial intelligence is going to be so all-encompassing in the future. I just want to make sure that we're on the ground level and our students are learning what they need to know to be able to deal with it and, more than just what do you understand? Can you help me find my words?
No,
It's going to be
absolutely.
so all-encompassing. They need to know what their jobs are going to entail. I want to make sure that our district is on the bottom level and able to support them and give them what they need to know in the future with this huge thing coming in so many aspects that it'll affect our lives.
So one or two strategic plans ago, somebody brought up that a lot of these students are going to have careers that we've never even heard about. They don't even
Absolutely.
exist. AI is going to be one of them.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminds me, where are we at with the strategic plan and the approval of it?
It's completed through the community committee, the
Okay.
stakeholders. And now what happens is it's going to go back with Ms. Farage taking the lead, with Mr. Silveri, and getting a small group of her steering committee, and they're gonna take all the information and come up with a draft, and then at some point, I believe, the major committee will either come and be invited back, or will at least receive a copy of the final product. But we did meet over the 3 times, and I know Trustee Barry represented the board at those meetings, and they were very productive meetings. So I'm not sure when it would come for approval, but I'm thinking probably the earliest would be October that we could have a good thing.
I think I just wanted to follow up with Trustee Moses. I think instead of waiting for obviously policy, I think just reminding the principals to have at the building level, I'm sure that they're having, and as well, I know the teachers are as well, saying that not being able to use AI as a sort of plagiarism as well. I'm sure that they're having it in the classrooms, I know they are, but just as a reminder as well, that it is a tool, but not a substitute for student brain power, so.
Trustee Petlicoff?
In that regard, at the last meeting, when I asked about, when we were talking about cell phone use with students, and there had been a concern when there was a lockdown at Fortson, and students were taking video inside the classroom and then sending it to an outside source who was posting it, which could endanger the lockdown process if somebody is watching it and knows what's going on inside the classrooms. Did anybody ever tap into whether we can, I don't know how we could possibly halt that going into the atmosphere there during a critical period, but it could be potentially harmful in the safety of all the other students.
We have a no phone policy, but it's up to the discretion of the teachers.
And what we need to continue to do is educate the student body, like my council and others, and just getting information out that it's important not to be doing that, because it could potentially jeopardize their own safety. So more education as we continue to move on our protocols for maintaining school safety in case of an event that we hope we never have to deal with.
Next item.
Future meeting dates, Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, P12 Executive Session, closed evaluation, 6 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center, Room 12. Monday, August 14th, 2023, HFC Board of Trustees Policy Meeting, 6 p.m. at the Administrative Services and Conference Center in the Cabinet Conference Room. Monday, August 14th, 2023, HFC Board of Trustees Audit Committee Meeting, 6:30 at the Administrative Services and Conference Center in the Cabinet Conference Room. Monday, August 14th, 2023, HFC Board of Trustees Meeting, 7 p.m. at the Administrative Services and Conference Center in the Rosenau Boardroom. And Monday, August 21st, 2023, P12 Board Meeting, 7 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center in the Frank Franchi Boardroom.
I just want to make a quick announcement, and again, I want to thank Mark Andrews, Matt, the operations team, Rory, our building engineer, Bill. This building, this is the bandage for today. So we have some air in here under generator, but this building will not be physically open tomorrow because we have to protect things that we need to keep operational. So we have to deliberately keep people out of the building so we're not using too much power to jeopardize networks and other things that need power. So people will be reachable via email or phone call messages, but we will only have a few people physically in this building in order to protect the interests of the district with the network and other things. We just can't have a lot of people coming in. So I just wanted everyone to be aware. It turned out to be a bigger job with this pole that caught on fire. Thank you to the Dearborn Fire Department for putting it out and everyone who took action with that storm. But it's going to take a little while. We're hoping possibly tomorrow or possibly I'm hearing Wednesday because of the serious nature of the job. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
With that, we are adjourned. Have a good evening.